What kind of secrets do you think the government keeps from us for our own good? Story 1. This may not be the most common answer, but it is the right one. In the US, information that doesn't need to be classified may nonetheless not be released to the public for a number of reasons, including as protecting people's privacy or limiting the export of defense goods and services. These secret channels are only for use by the executive branch, so the persons utilizing them aren't voting politicians. However, I'm sure that lawmakers have or can get their own safe lines if they want them. Sure, overclassification is a concern, but the main thing is to be able to have private conversations from a distance, because it costs a lot to switch channels between major levels of protection. Every employee tends to send as much traffic as they can on the channel they are using. This is an example of when you have a hammer in your hand, all your problems look like nails, or when you have a top secret message form, all your messages are top secret. Story 2. You know what? I'm going to let Kay talk for me. People are smart, people are dumb, panicky, and dangerous animals, and you know it. There's always an alien battle cruiser, a Corellian death ray, or an intergalactic plague meant to wipe out all life on this miserable little planet. The only way these people can live their happy lives is if they don't know about it. The same situations. Was it truly only humans that acted this way? Do these other species also not know how many aliens there are? Does this happen on any other planet besides Earth? Kay is right when he says that people are stupid and dangerous animals, but it doesn't mean that we, as a species, are better off not knowing. In the MIB series, I am only talking about that specific case. I do think that the government needs to keep a lot of secrets for our own good. Story 3. If you want to know more about aliens, UFOs, and other things like that, read UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record. From a logical point of view, most people agree that many governments, sometimes strange creatures fly around in the sky. Admit that these things could be dangerous for both military and civilian vehicles. Recognize that they breach international regulations pertaining to safety, protocol, and best practices. Cannot determine the origin or characteristics of the things. The US government doesn't seem to want to hide tales of these encounters, but it also doesn't seem to care about them. It looks like this is also true for China and Russia. One reasonable conclusion is that no one knows what they are, and they usually seem harmless. Even if we wanted to study them more, they are by nature random and unexpected, and they have features that military vehicles can't match. It would be hard. Story 4. I work on submarines as a sonar tech. You wouldn't believe what the public doesn't know about what submarines do now. The technology that can be put on mast right now is crazy. We also conduct a lot of spec ops SEAL deployment work on some platforms. There is also a whole part of our fleet that is even more secret and does even crazy things that no one knows about until they read in. I know that a boat near South Korea shot down a UAV to watch North Korean bombardment. This is one example that got out on the internet. Is it better for the public that no one knows about this? Most likely. Why tell the people who are messing with us that we're doing it? More significantly, we can do it. And this is just a little part of the military for me. I can't even begin to think of the bad things other branches do. I want to say something, but OPSEC, yo. Wow, that's a heavy but fascinating peek behind the curtain. It really hits you how much goes on under the surface, literally, that most of us never hear about. The mix of cutting-edge tech, high-stakes missions, and the constant balance between transparency and national security. It's intense. There's something sobering about realizing how many silent professionals are out there doing incredibly complex, high-risk work in total secrecy, all while the rest of the world just keeps turning. Story 5. It's likely that Americans are more of a menace to themselves than gunmen are. How many sleepers have we captured compared to white youngsters who walk into a school and kill a lot of people? The other day, I beat a guy in pool quite badly in a bar. I play a lot, so this isn't unusual, but he was socially awkward, drunk, stuttering, and wearing a big black trench coat. He was also very unhappy when I left him with 6 balls on the table, so I quickly decided to give him the table. It was soon after the shooting in Connecticut, and I'm not lying when I admit that it had some effect on my choice to leave the pub right away. I usually would have stayed and maybe bought him a shot and a beer, but there was something about the way this man was acting that made me want to go. I think terrorism is real, but I'm less likely to see an attack like that coming. Therefore, I'm in a frame of mind where ignorance is bliss. I am much more scared of white, shy men who don't have the guts to slap a man in the face and instead assault a mall or, even worse, a school. Story 6. I'll say what I think here. I don't care about how weapons systems are classified. I don't care if a new M4 feed can spit out 30 rounds in less than a second or anything. That doesn't bother me. What worries me is the old mystery and the things we unearthed that aren't from Earth. I think that the fast rise in technology before World War II wasn't all our fault. I can say with complete confidence that that new small shuttle isn't up to anything bad. The government is seeking to find a way to connect airborne eavesdropping, like U-2 and Scan Eagles, with orbital spying. They need LEO testing on a new set of sensors that will help close the gap. That said, it's also possible that space-based UAVs and UCAVs will be developed, starting with the 37 times. What else are they up to? Just so you know, Roswell was a hoax to hide another crash that happened somewhere else and went nearly completely unreported. Area 51 was, and still is, a place where they try very new and unstable ways to power airplanes. It is also a long-range early warning radar facility and a place to test new technologies for future combat aircraft. Area 51 was kept secret because the people who worked there used designs or fuel that weren't always safe, such airborne nuclear reactors or very toxic or explosive fuel components. It may or may not have had technology from outside of Earth at one time for reverse engineering, which probably didn't work. During the Cold War, Area 51 was also a very secret place since they tested stolen MiGs against early warning radars there. Story 7. Okay, here are a few things to think about from the point of view of a devil's advocate. The DoD has a regular set of tactics for dealing with climate change as a threat to the country. This is neither a political issue or a liberal action item. The petrochemical sector wants everyone to believe that if we just drill here or there, we're golden. This isn't really a state secret. The more you know, the less pretty it is. When in fact, we're clearly not. It's a point that other governments drive home and make sure their population understand. That just doesn't happen in the US. Nuclear proliferation. Who, how, and how many times have population centers been at jeopardy because of a gunman or a nuclear threat? It's a broken arrow scenario when the military loses control of a weapon. However, students have built nuclear bombs on their own at least twice as part of school projects. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, a student at Princeton made a weapon on his own for his dissertation. We can all see why they might want to keep that on the down low, very low, so I'll upload it to Reddit. I think Men in Black puts it up well. What if we knew that there weren't just one or two distant old extraterrestrial races, but thousands of them right here on Earth? It might easily make our business and military industrial elites act badly. Story 8. I don't know if this is good for them, but I think movie-style spying happens a lot more than we want to believe. MI6 operatives don't go to dinner parties and play cards, but you can see what they do in movies like Argo or Munich, especially the Wrath of God operation. That was crazy. The English and the IRA did things that would make a good movie, including acting like secret agents. One group would expertly make explosives, another would plant them, and a third might strategize how to get people out of the area. Operation Flavius was really exciting. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The real-world spy stuff isn't as flashy or glamorous as the movies, but in some cases, it's every bit as intense, sometimes even darker. Operations like Wrath of God or Flavius show just how far intelligence agencies and militant groups will go, and how strategic, precise, and emotionally charged these missions can be. It's not fantasy, it's calculated, often brutal, and leaves deep political and personal scars. Story 9, it looks like something is being hidden. It's not true that science has been making alien life seem possible. if not likely, at such a fast rate. In just 15 years, we've gone from being able to correctly measure the mass and distance of stars to identifying planets that could support life. As a biochemical researcher at a big institution, I can tell you how slowly science moves. It could take as long as 10 years to go from finding contradictory data to a reasonable theory, a lifetime to prove that theory. It seems strange to me how rapidly scientists have been able to prove that there are habitable exoplanets. I think we're getting used to the idea of life outside of Earth. I also think that the Curiosity rover will find proof of life on Mars, current or past, but probably single-celled, as it continues to temper. It doesn't take much to find intelligent alien life from there. We just need confirmation that germs may live on Mars. Story 10. The US government has between 150 and 300 special access programs functioning at any given moment, according to a Senate probe into government secrecy. These programs are classified above top secret and get billions of dollars in funding. They couldn't figure out what any of them were up to. How likely do you think it is that every single one of them is doing anything good for us? There isn't an established level of classification above top secret. There are, however, several programs that are not only classified as top secret but also compartmentalized with need to know clearances. This means that even people with top secret clearance can't find out about them, and only the individuals in charge of those programs may decide who needs to know. Story 11. The judicial branch is where many of the best, that is, most legitimate examples originate from. Attorneys may need to look at medical and mental records that provide important evidence in criminal cases. Not every kind of record is equally private or protected, but states, and the federal government, have a lot of rules in place to make sure that only people who have a real interest in the information can see it and that it can't be shared with anyone else, even people involved in the case, without following more steps. So one of the most important things that the judicial branch does is make sure that our private information and, by extension, the private information of every other private citizen, stays as private as possible, even when it is needed for a criminal or civil case. The judiciary generally doesn't take the Fourth Amendment seriously, which is disappointing because its safeguards are essentially similar in spirit. A well-known rule in criminal court is that if you want the government to take privacy seriously, you should hire a criminal defense lawyer who needs to view something private to help his client. Then they'll be falling over themselves to protect other people's privacy as much as they can, and sometimes even more than is legal. Story 12. No matter who you vote for president, the real power stays the same. For sure. I can remember the presidential debates that Ross Perot was in, which were in 1992 or 1993. He did very well for a candidate from a third party. Of course, the establishment Republicans and Democrats didn't like this. I remember that they openly stated and agreed that third-party candidates would not be allowed to take part in future presidential debates. Even as a cynical, indifferent adolescent, I thought that was very, very bad, if not corrupt and against freedom and democracy. I think it's apparent that it still remains true today. Since then, we've had presidents with different levels of power, but they've all maintained us on the same path toward more military imperialism and fewer civil liberties, all in the name of our safety. Story 13. A woman on The Daily Show recently said that Stalin sent a flying disc with young pilots that crashed in Roswell. We brought it to Area 51 and reverse engineered the craft since it seemed like part of some War of the Worlds plan to scare us. I think this is much more likely than real aliens since it would take a lot of time and space to get there. Even though I haven't thought about it too much, that was a fairly original idea. The only thing I don't like about it is that if it were true, why would the government want to keep it a secret? Don't tell people that Stalin was a crazy person who tried to scare us with phony aliens that were really malformed kids he attached to a rocket to kill them. What do you wish to hide? Yeah, that theory is absolutely wild, but also oddly compelling in a disturbing kind of way. The idea that Stalin would have tried some psychological warfare stunt straight out of War of the Worlds, using a flying disc and disfigured children to cause panic in the US? It's grotesque, but not totally out of character for the era or for Stalin's regime, given the extremes he was known for. Story 14. The level of corruption in politics around the world. That almost every important politician, especially in third world countries, has offshore bank accounts with millions of dollars in them, and that corruption is just a part of conducting business around the world. Some international aid initiatives are probably just bribes. Also, how far weapons have spread. South Africa and other countries that aren't officially recognized have nuclear programs. Many more may have gotten a few operational black market weapons, even if they couldn't make them from scratch. Check out Friend in High Places. It tells you a lot about what has been happening in this country over the past 150 years. This novel is about one of the many huge companies in the US that can do whatever they want. Some of it is bad and some of it is great. This book is about the Bechtel Group, which I guarantee most people have never heard of. On the other hand, I suppose most people know about the Hoover Dam. Hint: the Bechtels were in charge of the group that made this happen. They had money, politics, and power, just like AT&T, Comcast, and the music business do now. Story 15. Simple. The largest thing we could do with blue goo in classified space programs would be to release it. It includes constructing nanotechnology robots that eat mass and then make replicas of themselves. We send it to another celestial body in space, where it converts into 100% replicas of the robots. Each one goes in a different route. They proliferate around the universe at an increasing rate, making them the biggest possible secret project or conspiracy. We're just saying that the space program isn't worth it and shutting down NASA so that other countries like China don't try to do the same thing and compete with us for market share of all the mass in the universe, including all the other intelligent species that our blue goo will surround and imprison. That's the only way to be sure. Story 16. The most concerning secrets that the government holds probably have to do with what the CIA, the Justice Department, and the Defense Department did during the Cold War. Along with the moral failings of various wet works abroad, like Operation Northwoods, Operation Ajax, various assassinations, and working with right-wing strongmen, I think we would find that these agencies, bureaus, etc., have a history that is even worse than we know about spying on us, COINTELPRO, Bush-era wiretaps, and sometimes experimenting on us, MK Ultra. Story 17. I think that was Ultra. It's a campaign of deception, arguably the biggest and most pervasive in history, all to hide the truth that the Allies broke the Enigma cipher. Then there was the Japanese Purple cipher, the German Lorentz encryption, and the Italian C38 cipher. Thanks to the Polish Cipher Bureau, the Bletchley Park mathematicians, including Alan Turing, and the American Signal Intelligence Service, the Allies had broken every code the Axis deployed. Ultra was the name of the combined intelligence from all of these broken codes. But what do you do if your code stops working? You make a new one that is harder. The Allies couldn't let it happen. They couldn't let the Axis know that their codes were breached. How can you use data from a faulty code without letting people know that the code is broken? You are lying. If they wanted to destroy an Axis supply ship after finding it using Ultra, they didn't just do it. They sent a spy plane over the area where they knew the ship would be, and then they sank it. The crew was all like, "Oh no, we were seen." They also had to keep the broken codes from their own soldiers so that they wouldn't be found out by careless discussion. They sent out other surveillance planes even though they knew they wouldn't find anything. This way, the crews wouldn't have to wonder how the mission always found an adversary. They wouldn't assault until they had a cover story. The government knew that attacks were coming and men died because they wouldn't give in to Ultra. One of the few instances they had to sink ships right away, they sent a coded message to a spy in Naples congratulating him on his success, knowing that the Germans had broken the code. The spy wasn't real, but the Germans got the message and thought everything was still well with Enigma. The best part is that they didn't even tell anyone about Ultra after the war. They made sure that the Enigma machines were given to those in the third world who might be enemies. These people kept using the broken codes for years. It wasn't until 1974, 29 years after the conflict, that Ultra was fully revealed. There has never been a secret of such great importance that has been held for so long. Story 18. The secret agency took Nikola Tesla's papers immediately after he died. Also, the story of a man who built a car engine that doesn't need gas to work and got a patent for it. A few days later, the man died in strange circumstances, and the patent he filed for went lost. This is the Better Pogue carburetor. I don't know much about this kind of chemistry, but it's well known that internal combustion engines are only about 25% efficient. A small adjustment to an engine part that would double or even triple its efficiency would revolutionize all cars. But I can't believe that such a simple change hasn't been made in other countries as well. Story 19. Our world has contact with aliens. I think this is intriguing. With Snowden and the information he shared, a lot of it had already been disclosed by other whistleblowers who went to the press up to 10 years before, and most people didn't pay attention to them because they didn't have any proof. Aliens have been doing the same thing for more than 10 years. A lot of engineers worked at military installations like Area 51 and deep underground military stations where they had top secret clearances. People who can be shown to have worked there. They've been telling us that we've worked with them for years and that they have met them and seen them in person. But they don't have the hard evidence that Snowden did. Or even crazier, how Dr. Edgar Mitchell, an astronaut from Apollo, has been telling us the same thing, that there is a huge cover-up by aliens. This guy was the sixth person to set foot on the moon. Story 20. How the Secret Service goes about its business. Okay, keep the president safe. Sounds simple, huh? Until I gave it some thought. A lot of the time he's out in public. Most of the time, people have days of warning. With so many extreme right-wing anti-government people and similarly crazy militant Middle Easterners out there, it's likely that some of them will try to do what JFK did again, but you never hear about it. Did all the crazy people in the world choose to stay home? Or is the SS stopping them and keeping quiet about it before they can even try? I'm not an expert on the subject at all, but a lot of it has to do with stopping attack vectors before they happen. There are no longer planned routes for presidents to drive in convertibles. A big part of it would be keeping him moving in safe and contained ways of getting around, as well as ensuring the venues have been checked for safety. Also, a big part of it is getting tough on just threats. The Secret Service works hard to respond to random, "I want to kill the president" statements. This is mainly to get rid of the noise from those who think it's hilarious and leave only the crazy people who don't know any better. Lastly, I'm sure they do what you're hinting at and don't tell you about the close calls. Even while it makes sense that there was a hole at some point during the 8 years, they won't let it look like he is ever weak. Story 21. Since there isn't a serious tag, I want to start the conspiracy theory that governments are secretly putting agents in big GMO firms, like Monsanto, to control the public through food supply. Basically, this means hungry people who can't generate their own food or are strong enough to live. In summary, they will change the genetic yield rates of the crops on purpose to make the world short on food. There won't be enough food to go around, which will cause starvation and a drop in the population. What would make them do this? Fewer people means crops need less water. People need less fresh water. Less electricity needed, smaller carbon impact. Less fighting, fewer people, fewer needs. And so on and so on.